The Cleveland Browns are about to make a decision that could shake the entire NFL landscape in 2026, and it involves a coach who's currently fighting for his own survival in Miami. Right now, as we speak, the Browns front office is doing their homework, making phone calls, gathering intel on potential replacements for Kevin Stefanski, and one name keeps popping up in every conversation, every back-channel discussion, every insider whisper. Mike McDaniel. The same Mike McDaniel who once walked the halls of the Browns facility back in 2014, the same offensive genius who transformed the Dolphins into a scoring machine, and the same coach whose future in Miami is hanging by a thread. What's happening in Cleveland right now isn't just about firing another coach in a city that's become a graveyard for coaching careers. This is about a potential reunion, a second chance, and a move that could either resurrect the Browns or become another chapter in their endless book of dysfunction. And before we dive deep into this absolute chaos unfolding in Cleveland, if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, hit that subscribe button right now. We're bringing you the inside scoop on the biggest NFL stories of 2026, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Let's start from where we are right now, in January 2026. The Cleveland Browns are limping to the finish line of another disastrous season. 4 wins, 12 losses, and counting. This isn't just a bad year. This is the second consecutive catastrophic season for a franchise that seems allergic to success. Kevin Stefanski, the 2-time NFL Coach of the Year, the man who was supposed to finally bring stability to this cursed organization, is now coaching with could be his final game in a Browns uniform. And here's what makes this situation so fascinating and so tragic at the same time. Stefanski isn't a bad coach. He's actually pretty damn good. He won Coach of the Year twice. But in Cleveland, even excellence has an expiration date. The Browns are 7-26 over the past 2 seasons. Let that sink in for a moment. 7 wins in 2 years. That's expansion team territory. That's historically bad. And while Stefanski has maintained his composure, while he's kept the locker room together despite having a rotating carousel of quarterbacks that would make your head spin, the results speak louder than any post-game press conference ever could. According to multiple reports from The Athletic's Diana Russini, the Browns have been doing their preliminary research, their background checks, gathering information on potential head coaching options. This isn't speculation anymore. This is real. The Browns are leaning toward moving on from Stefanski, and when they do, they're going to need someone to fill that void. Enter Mike McDaniel. Now here's where this story gets really interesting, because McDaniel's connection to Cleveland isn't some random speculation pulled out of thin air. The Browns have had their eyes on him for a while. Mary Kay Cabot, one of the most plugged-in Browns reporters in the business, revealed something crucial. The Browns have always admired McDaniel's brilliant offensive mind, his innovative play calling and strategic thinking. She said, and this is a direct quote, that McDaniel has been on their radar for some time, and the Browns would likely jump at the chance to interview him if the Dolphins fire him and Cleveland parts ways with Stefanski. This isn't a new crush. This is a long-term admiration that's been brewing in Cleveland's front office for years. But let's rewind the clock for a second and understand who Mike McDaniel really is and why the Browns are so infatuated with him. McDaniel is 42 years old, a coaching prodigy who's been grinding in the NFL since he was 22. He's worked under Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan, alongside Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, and every other offensive genius you can think of in this modern NFL era. His resume is stacked. He was part of the Washington staff when they had that incredible coaching tree. He moved to Atlanta, reached a Super Bowl, then he went to San Francisco, where he became the run game coordinator and helped build one of the most physical, dominant offenses in football. In 2021, he was promoted to offensive coordinator for the 49ers, and then in February 2022, the Miami Dolphins made him their head coach. And here's the thing about McDaniel's tenure in Miami. It started like a dream. His first season, the Dolphins went 9-7 and made the playoffs for the first time since 2016. His second season in 2023 was even better. The Dolphins finished 11-6, made the playoffs again, and had the #2 scoring offense in the entire NFL. McDaniel was being talked about as one of the brightest young minds in football. Tua Tagovailoa looked like a legitimate franchise quarterback. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were unstoppable. Everything was clicking. But then came 2024, and the wheels started to wobble. Miami missed the playoffs with an 8-9 record, and now in 2025, heading into the final week of the season, they're 7-9, about to miss the playoffs for the second straight year, and suddenly McDaniel's job security isn't looking so secure anymore.
ESPN's Dan Graziano reported just days ago that he's hearing conflicting things about Miami. For a while, it sounded like McDaniel was a good bet to stay, but lately the winds have shifted. Owner Stephen Ross has been supportive of McDaniel throughout the season, but support only goes so far when you're missing the playoffs year after year. Ross fired general manager Chris Greer back in October after the Dolphins started 2-7. That was supposed to save McDaniel's job, a signal that ownership believed the roster construction was the problem, not the coaching. But after firing your GM mid-season, if you still finish with a losing record and miss the playoffs again, how much rope does the head coach really have left? Now here's where the Browns enter the picture in a real way. Cleveland's situation is desperate. Their offense has been absolutely anemic. They've never finished in the top half of the league in total yards under Stefanski. Only once have they been in the top half in points per game. This season, they're struggling to move the ball, struggling to score touchdowns, struggling to do anything that resembles modern NFL offense. And what does Mike McDaniel specialize in? Offense. Creative, innovative, explosive offense. During his first few years in Miami, he made the Dolphins one of the most dynamic offenses in football. He built a system that maximized Tua's strengths, that got the ball to his playmakers in space, that created easy throws and explosive plays. That's exactly what Cleveland needs right now. According to Mary Kay Cabot, the Browns have always viewed McDaniel as an offensive genius, a wizard-type coach who does innovative things that other coaches aren't thinking about. And remember, McDaniel actually has Cleveland roots. He was the wide receivers coach for the Browns in 2014 under head coach Mike McDaniel. That was only one season, and it was a rough one. The Browns went 7-9 that year, but McDaniel was in the building. He knows the city, he knows the organization, and more importantly, the Browns organization knows him. That familiarity matters. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler added another layer to this story when he reported that his sense is that McDaniel would be a candidate in Cleveland should the Dolphins move on and Cleveland's job opens up. He emphasized that McDaniel still has some support in Miami, but from what Fowler has gathered, the Dolphins' GM search won't necessarily be centered around fitting with McDaniel. It's more about finding the best team fit in general. That's a subtle but important distinction. It means Miami's new general manager might come in and want their own coach. That's how these things usually work in the NFL. New GMs want their guys, not the previous regime's guys. So let's paint the picture of what could happen here. The Browns finish their season on Sunday against the Bengals. Black Monday arrives. The Browns officially part ways with Kevin Stefanski, who immediately becomes one of the hottest coaching candidates available. Multiple reports suggest that if Stefanski is fired, teams like the New York Giants and Tennessee Titans would be all over him. He's respected around the league. His failures in Cleveland are seen by most as a product of the Deshaun Watson disaster and the Browns' overall dysfunction, not because Stefanski can't coach. Meanwhile, down in Miami, the Dolphins finish their season and owner Stephen Ross has to make a decision. Does he give McDaniel a fifth year after 2 straight losing seasons, or does he make a change and start fresh with a new GM and a new head coach? If Ross decides to move on from McDaniel, the Browns would pounce immediately. According to multiple sources, Cleveland would be very intrigued by the possibility of bringing in McDaniel. But here's where this story gets so juicy. There's no guarantee Miami fires McDaniel. In fact, several reports suggest that Ross likes McDaniel, believes in him, and has been looking for reasons to keep him around. The Dolphins went on a little run at the end of the season, winning 5 of their last 7 games after starting 2-7. That late-season surge might be enough to save McDaniel's job. If Miami decides to run it back with McDaniel for one more year, then Cleveland has to pivot to their backup options. And that's where this gets messy for the Browns, because while McDaniel might be their preferred target, there's no shortage of candidates being thrown around for the Cleveland job. Guys like Jesse Minter, the Chargers defensive coordinator, who's built one of the best defenses in football. Chris Shula from the Rams, who's done incredible work with their young defensive front. Robert Saleh, the former Jets head coach, who's seen as a strong retread candidate. There's even been some buzz about guys like Joe Brady from Buffalo, Clint Kubiak from Seattle, and Jeff Hafley from Green Bay. The coaching market is fluid, and the Browns can't afford to wait around hoping Miami makes a decision that benefits them. Now let's talk about what makes McDaniel such an attractive option for Cleveland specifically. The Browns are almost certainly going to have a rookie or second-year quarterback running their offense in 2026. Right now, it's Shedeur Sanders, the fifth-round pick who's shown some flashes, but has also thrown more interceptions than touchdowns. Whether they stick with Sanders or draft someone like Dylan Gabriel or another quarterback in April, Cleveland needs a coach who can develop a young passer. McDaniel's track record with Tua Tagovailoa, for better or worse, shows that he can build an offense around a quarterback with limitations. Tua isn't known for his arm strength or his ability to make every throw, but McDaniel created a system that highlighted what Tua could do well. Quick passes, timing routes, getting the ball to his playmakers in space. That's exactly what a young quarterback needs to build confidence and grow in this league. The Browns also have some offensive pieces to work with. Rookie running back Quinshawn Judkins showed promise. Rookie tight end Harold Fannin has the potential to be a weapon in the passing game. Jerry Jeudy is a talented receiver, even if his production hasn't been great in Cleveland's struggling offense. If McDaniel came to Cleveland, he could design an offense that maximizes these players' strengths. He's proven he can do that. He did it in Miami with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, and a rotating cast of offensive linemen. He adapted, adjusted, and created explosive plays even when the roster had holes. But there's a flip side to the McDaniel argument, and it's something Browns fans need to hear. McDaniel's offenses in Miami have been boom or bust. When they're on, they're incredible. When they're not, they're painfully inconsistent. This past season, the Dolphins ranked 25th in total yards and 22nd in points scored. The year before, they were 18th in yards and 13th in points. Those aren't offensive genius numbers. Those are middle-of-the-pack to below-average numbers. So is McDaniel's reputation as an offensive wizard based more on his pedigree and his connections to the Shanahan tree than his actual results as a head coach? That's a legitimate question. There's also the leadership question. McDaniel isn't known as a fiery, intense, disciplinarian type of coach. He's more of a player's coach, a cerebral guy who connects with his team through intelligence and creativity rather than through old-school toughness. That works for some teams, but the Browns have been through so much chaos, so much dysfunction, so many losing seasons, that maybe they need someone who can come in and establish a strong, no-nonsense culture. Stefanski tried to do that, but the Watson situation, the injuries, the roster turnover, all of it made it nearly impossible. Would McDaniel be able to handle the pressure of coaching in Cleveland, a city that hasn't seen real success in decades? Would he be able to rebuild the culture while also installing a new offense and developing a rookie quarterback? Those are massive questions that don't have easy answers.
Meanwhile, General Manager Andrew Berry is reportedly going to keep his job despite the Browns' failures over the past 2 years. Berry has been praised for his 2025 draft class, which included some solid rookies who showed promise. But Berry has also been heavily criticized for the overall roster construction, especially on offense. If Berry stays and gets to hire his first head coach, that's a massive responsibility. The last time the Browns hired a GM and a coach, they brought in Berry and Stefanski within 2 weeks of each other back in January 2020. This time, if Stefanski is gone, Berry will have the opportunity and the burden of making his own hire. And if he swings and misses, if the next coach fails, just like the previous ones, Berry's job security in 2027 and beyond becomes very shaky. There's another wrinkle to this story that's been flying under the radar. The Browns are projected to be over $128 million over the 2026 salary cap. That's absolutely insane. That's a financial disaster that stems largely from the Deshaun Watson contract, which is still on the books and still crippling the franchise. Watson is unlikely to play in 2026 due to his injuries, but he's likely to be part of the roster because cutting him would be a financial nightmare. So whoever becomes the next Browns head coach is inheriting a roster with massive cap problems, limited flexibility in free agency, and the need to rely heavily on the draft to rebuild. That's not exactly an appealing situation for a coach, especially if there are other jobs available with better rosters and more financial freedom.
So where does all of this leave us heading into Black Monday in the 2026 coaching carousel? The Cleveland Browns are almost certainly going to fire Kevin Stefanski. Multiple sources have confirmed that the team is leaning in that direction. The question is what happens next. If Miami fires Mike McDaniel, the Browns would absolutely interview him and potentially make him an offer. McDaniel checks a lot of boxes for what Cleveland needs: offensive innovation, experience developing quarterbacks, familiarity with the organization from his 2014 stint, but there's no indication that Miami has made a final decision on McDaniel's future. Owner Stephen Ross has been supportive, and the late-season turnaround might be enough to earn McDaniel another year. If that happens, the Browns move on to Plan B, Plan C, Plan D, and the coaching search becomes a lot more uncertain. There's also the very real possibility that even if McDaniel becomes available, he might not want the Cleveland job. Let's be honest, coaching the Browns is one of the least desirable positions in the NFL right now. They have one of the worst cap situations in the league. They don't have a franchise quarterback. They play in a tough division with the Ravens, Steelers, and Bengals. The ownership has a history of meddling and making bad decisions. And the fan base, while passionate, has been burned so many times that the pressure and scrutiny on the next coach will be suffocating. If McDaniel has multiple offers, and he likely would if Miami lets him go, why would he choose Cleveland over a team like the Giants, who have a cleaner roster and are located in the biggest media market in the country? But here's the counterargument that might actually work in Cleveland's favor. The Browns have an elite defense led by Myles Garrett, who's going to win Defensive Player of the Year this season. They have rookie linebacker Carson Schwezinger, who's been phenomenal and looks like a future star. They have cornerback Tyson Campbell, who came over in a mid-season trade and has played well. The defense isn't the problem in Cleveland. It's actually one of the better units in the league. If you're an offensive-minded coach like McDaniel, the idea of pairing your innovative offense with an already elite defense could be really appealing. That's a formula that works in today's NFL. Look at what the Texans did this year with DeMeco Ryans calling a great defense and getting just enough from the offense to compete. If McDaniel could come to Cleveland, fix the offense, and let Jim Schwartz continue to run that defense, the Browns could actually be competitive relatively quickly. There's also the draft capital to consider. The Browns have 2 first-round picks in the 2026 draft. One is their own, which will be a top 5 or top 10 pick based on their record. The other is the late first-rounder they got from Jacksonville in the Travis Hunter trade. Having 2 first-round picks gives the new coach and Andrew Berry a lot of flexibility. They could trade up to get their franchise quarterback if they fall in love with someone. They could stay put and take the best player available at their original pick and add another talented rookie late in the first round. Or they could trade one of those picks for a veteran player to fill an immediate need. That kind of draft capital doesn't come around often, and for a coach looking to rebuild quickly, having those resources available would be huge. But let's get back to the central question of this entire story. Is Mike McDaniel actually going to be the next Cleveland Browns head coach? And the answer, as unsatisfying as this might be, is we don't know. Nobody knows. This is all speculation, rumors, and educated guessing based on insider reports and league sources. What we do know is that the Browns have done their homework on McDaniel. What we do know is that McDaniel would be a candidate if both jobs become available. What we do know is that Cleveland needs an offensive-minded coach who can develop a young quarterback and modernize an offense that's been stuck in neutral for 2 years. And what we do know is that McDaniel's future in Miami is uncertain enough that this rumor has legs, has substance, has enough smoke that people around the league are paying attention. The timing of everything is going to be crucial. The Browns play the Bengals on Sunday in Week 18. The Miami plays the Patriots. Both teams will finish their seasons, and then the real action begins. Black Monday is when teams officially announce their coaching changes. That's when Stefanski's fate will be sealed in Cleveland. That's when Miami will have to decide whether to give McDaniel another chance or make a change. And depending on how those dominoes fall, we could see one of the wildest coaching carousel storylines of the entire offseason. There's also been some chatter that if the Browns do fire Stefanski, they might try to trade him rather than just cutting him loose. Trading a head coach is extremely rare in the NFL, but it's not unheard of. Bill Belichick was traded from the Jets to the Patriots back in 2000. John Gruden was traded from the Raiders to the Buccaneers in 2002. If Stefanski is as highly regarded around the league as multiple reports suggest, teams like the Giants or Titans might be willing to give up draft capital to secure him immediately, rather than going through the traditional interview process where they risk losing him to another team. If Cleveland could trade Stefanski and get back a draft pick, even a mid-round pick, that would be a small win in an otherwise disastrous situation. The Browns are at a crossroads. This isn't just about finding the next head coach. This is about the entire direction of the franchise for the next 3 to 5 years. If they hire the right coach, if they nail the draft, if they can somehow navigate their cap disaster and build a competitive roster, maybe, just maybe, Cleveland can finally break the cycle of losing that's haunted them for decades. But if they hire the wrong coach, if they whiff on the draft, if the cap situation continues to spiral, this team could be looking at another rebuild in 2 or 3 years. The stakes couldn't be higher.
Mike McDaniel represents a gamble. He's an offensive mind with a track record of success in San Francisco and early success in Miami. But he's also a coach who hasn't won a playoff game and whose offenses have been inconsistent over the past 2 seasons. He's the kind of hire that Browns fans would either love or hate, with not much middle ground. Some would see it as bringing in a modern, innovative coach who can finally fix the offense. Others would see it as another risky move by a franchise that can't afford any more mistakes. And that's the reality of coaching the Cleveland Browns. No matter who they hire, there will be skepticism, there will be doubt, because this franchise has broken the hearts of its fans too many times to count. As we head into the final days of the 2025 season, the rumors will only get louder. More names will be linked to the Browns' job. More insider reports will drop about who's interested, who's not interested, who the Browns are targeting. But right now, in this moment, Mike McDaniel is the name that keeps coming up in conversations. The Browns have been watching him for years. They admire his offensive creativity. They know him from his 2014 stint in Cleveland. And if the opportunity presents itself, if Miami decides to move on and Cleveland decides to move on from Stefanski, there's a real chance that McDaniel could be wearing brown and orange in 2026. But here's the final thing to remember as all of this plays out. Nothing is official until it's official. The Browns haven't fired Stefanski yet, even though it seems inevitable. The Dolphins haven't made a final decision on McDaniel, even though his seat is getting hotter by the day. The coaching carousel hasn't officially started spinning yet, even though everyone around the league is already positioning themselves for what's coming. So while Mike McDaniel to the Browns makes sense on paper, while the connections are there, while the rumors are real, we're still in the speculation phase. We're still waiting for the dominoes to fall. And when they do, the entire NFL landscape could shift in ways we're not even anticipating right now. This is the story of 2 franchises at critical junctures. The Cleveland Browns, desperate for stability and offensive competence, searching for the coach who can finally end decades of misery. And the Miami Dolphins, trying to decide whether the coach they hired with so much hope and promise 4 years ago still deserves another chance to prove himself. These 2 stories are colliding in real time, and by this time next week, we'll know a lot more about what the future holds for both organizations. One thing is certain, the next few days and weeks are going to be absolutely wild in Cleveland. The pressure is on Andrew Berry to get this hire right. The pressure is on the Haslams to stay out of the way and let their football people make football decisions. And if Mike McDaniel does become a candidate, the pressure will be on him to convince Browns ownership that he can come to Cleveland and accomplish what no coach has been able to do in nearly 30 years. Build a winner, build a culture, and give this tortured fan base something to finally believe in again. So, there you have it. The Mike McDaniel to Cleveland Browns saga is one of the most intriguing coaching storylines heading into the 2026 offseason. The connections are real, the interest is legitimate, and the possibility is absolutely on the table. But nothing has been decided yet. No official hire has been made. No firing has been announced. This is all based on insider reports, league sources, and the endless rumor mill that defines the NFL coaching carousel. As things develop over the next week, we'll keep you updated with all the latest information, all the breaking news, and all the analysis you need to understand what's really happening behind the scenes in Cleveland and Miami. Remember, the information in this video is based on reports, insider sources, and ongoing developments as of January 2026. Situations can change rapidly in the NFL, and we'll continue to follow this story as it unfolds. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss any updates on this massive story.